I sat quietly in the corner of the Crystal Palace ballroom, watching my sister Amanda hold court among our family members. The sprawling venue sparkled with its signature chandeliers, the same ones I'd personally selected during the renovation last year. Not that anyone knew that. I mean, look at him. Amanda gestured toward me, champagne glass swaying. He can't even afford a proper suit for my wedding. That's why we're not giving him a +1. It would be embarrassing. Our mother Margaret nodded sympathetically, adjusting her designer dress. Sweetie, we just want your day to be perfect. And James? Well, he's made his choices. The choice they referred to was my decision to walk away from the family investment firm 5 years ago. In their eyes, I'd been working odd jobs ever since, barely scraping by. They assumed I'd failed when I stopped showing up at family functions in expensive suits and luxury cars. At least he's here to help set up. Aunt Patricia chimed in, eyeing the stack of gifts I'd been arranging. Though I do wish he'd worn something more appropriate than jeans to the Crystal Palace. I suppressed a smile. The jeans were actually bespoke Italian denim worth more than Patricia's monthly mortgage payment. But appearances were everything in this game I'd been playing. James, Amanda called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Be a dear and fetch more champagne from the kitchen. And try not to break anything. This place is worth more than you'll make in a lifetime. If she only knew. The Crystal Palace was just one of 17 luxury venues I owned across the city. While my family thought I was bouncing between dead-end jobs, I'd been building Sovereign Hospitality Group into a billion-dollar empire. Every wedding venue, every five-star hotel, every exclusive club that the city's elite fought to book, I owned them all. I headed toward the kitchen, passing the portrait of the venue's supposed owner, Mr. Alexander Kingston. The distinguished gray-haired man in the photo was actually an actor I'd hired for promotional materials. It amused me how often my own family mentioned meeting him at social events, when in reality, they'd never met the man who actually owned their favorite venues. The kitchen staff straightened up as I entered. They all knew who I really was, but they'd signed ironclad NDAs. Everything ready for later, Mr. Harrison. The head chef whispered. I nodded. Perfect timing in 20 minutes, Marcus. And remember, act surprised when the revelation happens. We know, sir. Returning with the champagne, I caught the tail end of another conversation about me. Living in that tiny apartment in the bad part of town, my mother was saying. I drove by last week. It's shameful. What she didn't know was that I owned the entire building. The tiny apartment was actually 3 units combined into a stunning penthouse, with the entrance deliberately kept modest. The bad part of town had been transformed through strategic development into the city's most promising up-and-coming district, all through companies I controlled. At least he's not asking for money anymore. My father chimed in. Remember when he needed that loan for his supposed business venture? That loan had been a test. I'd asked each family member for $10,000, promising returns. They'd all laughed and refused. Now that same business was worth $500 million. But they'd never know about the opportunity they'd missed. Amanda was now holding court about her wedding plans. The Crystal Palace was the only venue worthy of my special day. We had to book it 2 years in advance, and the cost daddy nearly had a heart attack. I checked my watch. Almost time. The expensive booking had actually been comped. I'd just had my staff maintain the illusion of payment to keep up appearances. The real owner of the venue wouldn't charge his sister, even if she was currently making his life miserable. And the guest list. Amanda continued. Only the absolute elite of the city. James, you'll need to use the service entrance that day. We can't have you mixing with the actual guests. That's when I saw Marcus, right on schedule, entering with an envelope. Excuse me, everyone. There seems to be some confusion about the venue booking. Amanda's face turned red. What? Everything's been arranged for months. Yes, well, Marcus cleared his throat. The owner needs to speak with you about some details, Mr. Kingston, but he personally approved everything. I stood up. Actually, there is no Mr. Kingston. The room fell silent. I pulled out my phone and pressed a button. The massive screens around the ballroom lit up with the Sovereign Hospitality Group logo, followed by a slideshow of all 17 properties. My name and photo appeared as CEO and owner. What? What is this? Amanda stammered. This, I said calmly, is me telling you that you can't ban the owner of the venue from his own building. The next few minutes were chaos. My mother nearly fainted. My father started sputtering about impossible, and must be a mistake. Aunt Patricia spilled her champagne all over her designer dress. But, you're broke. Amanda shrieked. You live in that awful apartment. I smiled. You mean my 4,000 square foot penthouse, the one in the building I own, in the district I developed. Marcus handed me the envelope. Your family's been asking about Mr. Kingston for years. I thought it was time they met him. I pulled out the original deed to the Crystal Palace, along with photos of me signing the purchase agreement 3 years ago. This is just the Crystal Palace. I continued. Would you like to see the paperwork for the other 16 properties? Or maybe the documentation showing Sovereign Hospitality Group's current valuation of $1.2 billion. Amanda collapsed into a chair, her perfect makeup streaking with tears. But, why pretend to be poor? Because 5 years ago, when I left the family firm to start my own company, none of you believed in me. You all made it very clear that I was nothing without the family name. So I built something bigger, better, and I did it without any of you knowing. My father stepped forward, his business mind finally engaging. Son, if what you're saying is true, the implications for our family's social standing are significant. I finished for him. Every major social event in this city for the past 3 years has been held at one of my venues. Every wedding, charity gala, and corporate function that our family has attended. You've been my guests without knowing it. The Harrison Hotel, my mother gasped. The Summit Club, all mine. Through various holding companies, of course. It's amazing what you can hide with good lawyers and better accountants. The room was silent again, but this time with a different energy. I could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. Not just the money but the social implications. They'd been unknowingly dependent on my success while mocking my supposed failure. As for the wedding, I turned to Amanda. You're still welcome to have it here, but I will be entering through the front door, wearing what I choose, and bringing whoever I want as my +1. Who? Amanda asked weakly. Sarah Chen, my fiancée. You might know her as the CEO of Novatech Solutions. We met when she booked the Crystal Palace for her company's IPO celebration last year. The same celebration you all attended, by the way. Without realizing your failed relative owned the venue. The implications were sinking in. Every snide comment about my clothes, every joke about my supposed poverty, every time they'd made me work at their events. I'd been the owner all along. Now, I said, straightening my cheap jacket, I believe we have some new arrangements to discuss about the wedding. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to find another venue. Though I should mention I own all the suitable ones in the city. The look on their faces was worth every second of the past 5 years. Sometimes success isn't just about building something great. It's about revealing it at exactly the right moment. The next morning my phone exploded with messages and missed calls from every family member. I sat in my real office, the penthouse suite of the Harrison Hotel, watching the city skyline while reading through them. James, sweetie, please call your mother. We need to talk. Son, let's discuss this like businessmen. Little brother, I was just joking yesterday. Sarah, my fiancée, walked in with 2 cups of coffee. How many messages so far? 47 texts, 23 voicemails, and 16 emails. Plus, father tried to get into the building twice already. Security handled it exactly as instructed. She smiled, handing me my cup. And how does it feel? Like watching 5 years of planning finally pay off. I pulled up the security feeds on my tablet. My father was indeed making another attempt at the lobby, this time with my mother in tow. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, the security chief was saying. I understand you're Mr. James Terrence, but without explicit authorization. This is outrageous. My father bellowed. Do you know who we are? Yes, sir. You're the parents of our owner, who has specifically requested that all family members follow standard visitor protocols. I pressed the intercom button. It's okay, Marcus. Send them up, but only them. The elevator ride must have been tense because when my parents stepped into my office, they looked like they'd aged overnight. Gone was my father's usual commanding presence. My mother's perfectly maintained facade showed cracks. James, she started. Please sit. I gestured to the leather chairs facing my desk. I assume you have questions. They sat looking around the office with new eyes. The space screamed quiet wealth. Hand-carved mahogany, original artwork, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city they thought I couldn't afford to live in. How? Father asked simply. I started small. Remember Jason Wong, the delivery guy you said I was wasting time with 5 years ago? He had inside information about distressed properties. We began acquiring them through shell companies, renovating, rebranding. But the capital, Father's business mind was working overtime. Initial seed money came from my savings and some early investors. Every property we turned around generated capital for the next acquisition. Within 2 years, we owned 5 major venues. By year 3, we controlled the luxury hospitality market in the city. Mother was staring at a photo on my wall. Me shaking hands with the mayor at last year's charity gala. We were there, she whispered. You were serving drinks. I was observing. Every time you treated me like staff, I learned more about how you viewed success, status, wealth. It helped me build better venues, better experiences. But why the deception? Father demanded. Why let us believe? Because you needed to show me who you really were. I pulled out a folder. Every comment, every dismissal, every time you made Amanda's fiancé park his Porsche, while making me park cars at events. It's all documented. With dates. They flinched at seeing their behavior laid out so clinically. The night you told me I was throwing my life away, I had just closed the deal on the Crystal Palace. When you drove by my shabby apartment building, I was in Tokyo, acquiring our first international property. James, we didn't know. That's the point, Mother. You didn't try to know. None of you did. The story you created about my failure was more comfortable than asking questions. A notification popped up on my screen. Amanda was now in the lobby with her fiancé. Your sister's here, Sarah noted, checking her own phone. Yes, and she's about to learn some interesting things about her wedding plans. I pressed the intercom again. Send them up, Marcus. Amanda burst in like a hurricane in designer clothes. James, you have to fix this. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Fix what? The vendors. They're all saying their contracts are under review. The florist, the caterer, the band, for one. Ah yes, I pulled up another file on my tablet. It seems all these vendors have exclusive contracts with Sovereign Hospitality Group venues. Any external bookings need owner approval. But Mr. Kingston approved everything. Mr. Kingston doesn't exist, remember? And the actual owner has some concerns about the current arrangements. Her fiancé Michael stepped forward. Now see here. Careful, Michael. Remember that business loan you applied for last month? The one that mysteriously got approved despite your credit history. You're looking at the owner of the bank that approved it. The room went silent again. I let them process that for a moment before continuing. Here's how this will work. The wedding can proceed, but with new terms. First, I will be attending as a guest, not staff. Second, Sarah will be my +1. And she'll be treated with the respect due to both my fiancé and a CEO in her own right. But the seating arrangements, Amanda started, are being redone. In fact, I've taken the liberty of making several changes. The guest list, for instance. Those elite clients you invited, most of them are actually my tenants or business partners. They know exactly who I am. Mother's face went pale. You mean yes? The city's actual elite have been watching you treat me like a servant while I own the very buildings they operate in. Interesting dynamic, isn't it? You're enjoying this, Father accused. I'm correcting a power imbalance. I handed Amanda a new contract. These are the new terms for the wedding. You'll find them quite generous. Considering. Considering what? Considering I could simply cancel it. Every deposit you paid went to companies I own. It would be a simple matter of refunding them. Amanda snatched the contract, reading frantically. Her eyes widened at certain points. You're paying for everything. I always was. Those deposits you made, they went straight back into your account through a shell company. I wanted to see how you'd treat the venue staff if you thought you were paying top dollar. The staff, she looked sick. They all knew. Every server you berated, every valet you dismissed, every manager you tried to intimidate. They all report to me. And yes, they've been keeping detailed notes. Michael was looking increasingly uncomfortable. The bank loan is safe, assuming you both understand the new dynamic. I'm not vindictive, but I am thorough. This family spent 5 years showing me exactly who they are. Now it's time to decide who they want to be going forward. Father leaned forward. What do you want, son? Money, position. I want what I've always wanted. Respect. Not for my money or my companies, but for who I am. Something this family failed to give me when they thought I had nothing. Sarah touched my shoulder gently. Show them the other thing. I nodded, pulling up one final document on the screens. This is the guest list for our wedding. Sarah and I are getting married next spring. You'll notice your names are on it. Provisionally, Mother asked. Your actual invitations depend on how you handle the next 3 weeks. Amanda's wedding can be a fresh start for this family, or it can be the last event we all attend together. Your choice. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. 5 years of family dynamics were being rewritten in real time. Now I stood up. I have a board meeting to attend. Real one, not the kind where you make me serve coffee. Security will show you out. Oh, and Amanda, those changes to your wedding plan are non-negotiable. I expect your decision by tomorrow. As they filed out, looking shell-shocked, Sarah wrapped her arms around me. You okay? Better than okay. It's time this family learned that true success isn't about what you own. It's about who you are when you think nobody's watching. Through the windows, I watched my family exit the building, huddled together, probably already planning their next move. But for the first time in 5 years, I held all the cards, and I intended to play them perfectly. The 3 weeks leading up to Amanda's wedding were a masterclass in family dynamics. Every member of the Harrison clan suddenly discovered an urgent need to reconnect with their dear James. The same people who had ignored my existence now couldn't stop reaching out. The flowers have arrived for the final arrangement review, my assistant informed me as I walked through the Crystal Palace. Your sister has requested to change them. Again, I checked my watch. Third time this week. Where is she? Main ballroom with your mother and 3 of your aunts. I found them huddled around an elaborate flower display, Amanda looking more stressed than a bride should. The roses aren't right, she was saying. They need to be more pink. More expensive looking. They're rare Juliet Garden roses, I said, making them all jump. Flown in from a private garden in England. Cost more than your first car. Amanda fidgeted with her designer watch. A peace offering from me that she'd accepted with suspicious gratitude last week. James, I was just trying to assert control over anything, because you're still processing that your poor brother owns everything around you. Mother stepped forward, ever the mediator now. Darling, we're just trying to make sure everything is perfect. Perfect like when you told the staff last month that they should keep me away from the good champagne. I smiled as she flushed. Or perfect like when you insisted Mr. Kingston would never allow his venue to be associated with someone like me. The past weeks had been full of such moments, me casually reminding them of their previous behavior while watching them scramble to adjust their worldview. Every time they tried to exert their old authority, I had another example ready. The roses stay, I said firmly. Just like the table settings, the menu and the band. Everything has been personally selected by people who do this for a living. But as the bride, you're getting a $2 million wedding for free. Complete with things you didn't even know to ask for, like the vintage champagne that's been aging specifically for this day, or the Michelin-starred chef who changed his vacation plans as a personal favor to me. The mention of the cost made them all wince. They discovered that the deposits they'd paid were actually elaborate misdirections, with the money coming from and returning to my accounts. Speaking of personal favors, I continued, let's discuss the guest list changes you tried to make yesterday. Amanda paled. How did you? I own the printing company that makes the invitations. Did you really think you could slip in those extra names without me knowing? They're important clients of Daddy's. They're people who were rude to me at various events over the years. Funny how that works. I pulled out my phone and showed them the security footage from last year's charity gala. Here's your important client making the staff re-park his car 8 times while calling me a worthless valet. He's not coming. Mother tried again. James, surely we can. No, we can't. This wedding is now a statement piece. Everyone who attends will know exactly who owns the venue, who paid for everything, and most importantly, how you all treated me before you knew. You're punishing us, Amanda said quietly. I'm teaching you something about consequences. And speaking of consequences, I turned to my mother. The bridal shower video has been interesting viewing. She froze. Video, every venue I own records everything. Legal requirement, you understand. Would you like to see yourself explaining to your bridge club why I wasn't invited to the family table? Or perhaps the part where you suggested I could make myself useful by cleaning up? The silence was heavy with embarrassment. The good news is, you all have 3 days to show me you've learned something. The rehearsal dinner will be your first test. Test? They asked in unison. Yes, I've invited some special guests. People who knew my secret all along. They'll be watching how you treat everyone, from the servers to the kitchen staff. Think of it as a social experiment. Who? Amanda demanded. The mayor for one. Remember when you told him I was the family disappointment? He was already an investor in my second hotel. The CEO of Metropolitan Bank, you know, the one you snubbed at the New Year's gala. She's on my board of directors. Their faces showed the dawning realization that their social world had been upended long before my revelation. Your father's been trying to get a meeting with James Chen from Global Investments for months. I continued. Interesting fact. He plays poker at my private club every Thursday. Never mentioned it because, well, you never asked what I was doing with my time. James, Amanda's voice was smaller now. What do you want from us? What I've always wanted, for you to see me. Not my money, not my companies, but me. The brother you ignored, the son you dismissed, the family member you treated as staff. I want you to understand that success isn't just about what's in your bank account. I checked my watch again. Now I have a meeting with the actual wedding coordinator. The roses stay. The guest list stays as I approved it. And all of you might want to start practicing being nice to everyone you meet. Because in this city, you never know who actually works for me. As I turned to leave, Mother called out. The rehearsal dinner, what do we need to do? Be better than you were, I said without turning back. Or find another venue. Though good luck with that. I own all the good ones. The echo of my footsteps down the marble hallway was punctuated by their nervous whispers. 5 years of planning, of watching, of building my empire in secret, had led to this moment. In 3 days they would either prove they could change, or they would learn that actions have consequences. Sarah was waiting in my office when I returned. How did it go? About as expected. They're scrambling to adapt, but old habits die hard. Mother tried to pull rank. Amanda tried to change things behind my back, and none of them have quite grasped that their social standing now depends entirely on their relationship with me. And the rehearsal dinner plan, in motion. Every guest is someone they've underestimated or looked down on in the past 5 years. People who knew my secret and watched them treat me like nothing. Should be an interesting evening. Sarah smiled, understanding perfectly. We'd met because she'd seen through my act immediately at one of my venues, recognizing another self-made success story hiding in plain sight. Sometimes, she said, the best revenge is simply letting people face the reality of who they've been. I looked out over the city, my city in many ways, and nodded. 3 days until the rehearsal dinner. Then the wedding. Then we'll see if the Harrison family has learned anything about what really matters. The sun was setting over the skyline, casting long shadows through the buildings I owned. Somewhere out there, my family was coming to terms with their new reality. The next few days would show whether they deserved a place in my real life, or if they'd prefer to cling to their old illusions. Either way, I'd finally taken control of the narrative. And this time, I was writing the ending. The rehearsal dinner at the Summit Club was a masterpiece of subtle revenge. Every guest represented a piece of my hidden success story, and every family member's reaction told me exactly how much they'd learned, or hadn't, over the past weeks. James, the mayor, called out, raising his glass. Remember when you served drinks at my inauguration? Your family never noticed you were actually hosting the entire event. Amanda shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She'd been particularly dismissive that night, telling everyone within earshot how her brother couldn't even afford a proper suit while serving champagne. Or the time Sarah Chen from Nova Tech continued. When your sister demanded to speak to the owner about getting a better table, not realizing she was complaining to him directly. The evening proceeded like this. A carefully orchestrated series of revelations. Each guest had a story about how the Harrisons had dismissed or disrespected me, all while unknowingly depending on my success. Father sat silently, his usual commanding presence diminished. He'd spent years bragging about his business acumen, never realizing his son had built something far bigger right under his nose. A toast, I stood, commanding the room's attention, to appearances and how deceiving they can be, to success and how it's measured, and to family. I paused, looking at each of them, and the choices we make about how to treat each other. Mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. The past few weeks had been hardest on her, as she realized how her social climbing had cost her a real relationship with her son. Tomorrow, I continued, we'll celebrate Amanda's wedding. Every detail has been arranged, not just to showcase what I've built, but to remind us all of what matters more than money or status: humanity, kindness, and respect. Amanda looked up, finally understanding. The staff you've invited to be guests are the same ones you berated over the years. The valets you dismissed, the servers you ignored, the managers you threatened. They'll all be sitting at premium tables, wearing clothes worth more than your first house. And us, Michael, her fiancé, asked quietly. You'll be seated exactly where you deserve to be, based on how you've treated others. Consider it a lesson in karma. The room fell silent, letting that sink in. 5 years of social hierarchy was being reversed in a single evening. But I softened my tone. This isn't about punishment, it's about growth. Every person in this room has a choice to make: continue as you were, or build something better. Just like I did, when you all thought I had nothing. Sarah took my hand, squeezing it gently. She'd been my anchor through all of this, understanding exactly why it needed to be done. The wedding tomorrow will be everything Amanda dreamed of, I assured them. But it will also be a new beginning for this family. How that beginning unfolds depends entirely on you. As the evening wound down, I watched my family closely. Mother was actually engaging with the staff as people, not servants. Father was having a genuine conversation with his former driver, who was now one of my hotel managers. And Amanda, perhaps most surprisingly, was apologizing to people she'd wronged. They're trying, Sarah observed. They are, I agreed. The question is whether it will last beyond tomorrow. The next morning, as the Crystal Palace prepared for the wedding of the year, I made one final change to the seating arrangement. At each table, I placed a small card with a simple message. Success is not measured by what you own, but by how you treat others when you think you have nothing. James Harrison, owner. It was time for the Harrison family to learn that true wealth isn't about money. It's about the relationships we build and the respect we earn. As I adjusted my tie and prepared to walk into my sister's wedding as myself, not a servant, not a failure, but the successful man I'd become, I smiled at the journey that had brought us here. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply holding up a mirror and giving people a chance to see themselves clearly for the first time. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dynamics, and perhaps new understandings. But for today, watching my family finally see me for who I really am was enough. After all, I owned the mirror they were looking into. End of story.